Andrew, what I think is quite interesting in contract law is about how every year it's not as if we have a radical new case that radically changes the law. Quite the contrary, most of the case law is always about the same old issues. I'm thinking this year, for example, of Tribal Bassett and ADT.
Oh, the case where the contract's worth 9,000 and the loss is 110 million.
That's the one, and there was nothing very clever about it. It's not a striking new change in the law. It was a straightforward battle of the forms case. ADT provides some fire suppressant equipment for Tribal Bassett's popcorn factory. It doesn't work, factory burns down, £110 million later. And of course, ADT had a set of terms and conditions that had a cap on liability, but they didn't manage to get it into the contract. Tribal Bassett managed to get it in, to get their terms in instead, which have no cap. Tribal Bassett did that by very diligently making sure their terms apply. ADT failed to ever provide their terms and conditions to Tribal Bassett. It was a relatively straightforward decision by the court to make. £9,000 turns into £110 million of loss.
I mean, I always find these kind of cases the most difficult, and the reason for that is with the battle of the forms you either win or you lose, and it's a bit like playing Russian roulette but where you have half the chambers full of bullets, so it's a really tricky situation. I agree. I mean, I think one of the really interesting things about that case is although it was a breach of contract case, the winner, the person who won the case overall, only got 28.5 million out of the £110 million loss. And why was that? Well, because of contributory negligence. And I think most people would think, well, just a minute, I thought breach of contract was strict liability. If you win, and you win the lot. But actually, this case showed that actually with contributory negligence, it can apply in breach of contract where the breach is akin to a tortious duty. So it's a breach of a duty of care. So in this particular instance, it was a failure by the contractor to exercise reasonable skill and care in doing the works. And that actually meant that the loss that was suffered may have been 110 million, but the claimant was only able to recover 28.5.
Yeah, because it's very depressing reading the case about how Tribal Bassett ignored risk management warnings about compartmentalising its factory, about focusing on the risk arising from fire. And I think what you're saying is because ADT was negligent, was in breach of reasonable skill and care, it was able then to knock off its liability to reflect Tribal Bassett's contribution.
Absolutely. Whereas if the court had found that the sprinkler system was not fit for purpose, which is a straightforward contractual term, then Tribal Bassett would have got the full £110 million. Seems quite extraordinary. It's quite a big difference between those two.
Yeah. And then, of course, when you think about what can you learn from this case, I think one of my key lessons as a contracts lawyer is how in the 21st century we've forgotten the good old-fashioned discipline of making sure our terms and conditions are incorporated. Because in the old paper days, everyone very diligently put their terms and conditions on the back of the invoice, on the back of the quotation, on the back of the order form, and responded to the other party's terms and conditions. But in an electronic world of PDFs and emails, people are forgetting that. And I think the key lesson is that those basic requirements of battle forms still apply, and it is really important to be disciplined on your electronic contract formation.